Lucasfilm has just announced that we are getting a brand new series of films coming from the creators of Game of Thrones. The press release reads, David Benioff and D.B. Weiss are going from Winterfell to a galaxy far, far away. It was announced today that Benioff and Weiss, creators of the smash hit Emmy award-winning television series Game of Thrones, will write and produce a new series of Star Wars films. These new films will be separate from both the episodic Skywalker saga and the recently announced trilogy being developed by Rian Johnson, writer-director of Star Wars: The Last Jedi. David and Dan are some of the best storytellers working today, said Kathleen Kennedy, president of Lucasfilm. Their command of complex characters, depth of story, and richness of mythology will break new ground and boldly push Star Wars in ways I find incredibly exciting. In a joint statement, Benioff and Weiss said, in the summer of 1977 we traveled to a galaxy far, far away, and we've been dreaming of it ever since. We are honored by the opportunity, a little terrified by the responsibility, and so excited to get started as soon as the final season of Game of Thrones is complete. No release dates have been set for the new films, and there have, thankfully, been no sightings of White Walkers around Lucasfilm. Okay, wow, that's a lot to take in, and this just came out of nowhere. And my first question is, what does series mean? I mean, Rian Johnson is doing a definite trilogy, 3 movies. But series could mean anything more than 1. Is it 2? Is it 4? How many? I mean, I guess my guess is that we're going to get an anthology series, because then each movie would be able to explore similar themes and have similar tones, but we could follow different characters and not have the same story. And then that just allows a lot more flexibility down the line, because let's say the first 1 or 2 films aren't received very well, they could easily put that series to bed without having any dangling plot threads that need to be answered. But let's press pause real quick on the stuff that we don't know, and let's focus on the things we can say for sure. And that is that these films will be completely separate from the Skywalker saga and completely separate from Rian Johnson's trilogy. Thank you. That is the best news to me from this press release. I want Star Wars to start getting weirder, and now that Disney has officially made back that $4 billion that they used to purchase Lucasfilm, I think they're more willing to get experimental as well. I want to get outside of the Galactic Civil War, which is where we've been spending most of our time. I want to explore before the Clone Wars and after the sequel trilogy, or during all these time periods, but just following something completely different. New situations, new characters, but in a mostly familiar galaxy. As for Benioff and Weiss's involvement, I am very intrigued. I agree with Kathleen Kennedy that they have a lot of experience handling complex characters and very rich mythologies. I love the Song of Ice and Fire books. I have really enjoyed Game of Thrones, the show. I can already see the comments coming in. People are going to say, well, once the show surpassed the books, it just fell apart. Benioff and Weiss are hacks, and I don't really agree with that at all. I will agree that the show has picked up its pace in the past 2 or 3 seasons. Some of the foreshadowing and nuance has been left by the wayside, but I kind of take that as a sign that they're ready to move on. I mean, they set an end date for the show. It's going to end next year in season 8, and I've always kind of respected them for that. I mean, even responding to pressure from HBO to make the show last longer, they said no thanks, and they're kind of ending it on their own terms instead of milking this cash cow for all it's worth. I honestly think that's pretty admirable. That said, I am not really familiar with any of their work before Game of Thrones. I don't know how they handle like their own characters or anything that they have built completely on their own. Game of Thrones was built off the back of George R. R. Martin and the Song of Ice and Fire books, at least the first 5 of them. And I guess you can kind of say that's true. They're playing in Star Wars. It is an established universe. But it sounds like these are going to be their own characters, and I just don't really know what to expect from them. I do like what they said, that they are scared at the responsibility. I mean, I think what that translates to is we're scared of the fan base. They know that what they're taking on is not to be taken lightly. And honestly, anyone that goes in to write a Star Wars movie or direct a Star Wars movie these days, I admire their courage wholeheartedly. But you guys know me, you know that my first reaction to any news of this sort, any announcement for new Star Wars, is almost always excitement, or at the very worst, cautiously optimistic. And I don't know, I'm kind of in between that right now. I mean, when I look at Game of Thrones, there's so much more there that I liked than I disliked. So yeah, I mean, color me mostly excited. Now the question is, how are all these movies going to be released? I mean, we've got Solo coming out this year, Episode 9 next year, we've got Rian Johnson's trilogy, and now this series, which, I mean, let's just say for argument's sake it's 2. And then, even though it hasn't been officially announced, I am still convinced we're getting a Kenobi movie. That's 7 films, so that's going to last us into 2025. And part of me is wondering, with all of these unknown projects up in the air now, maybe Lucasfilm is going to look at how Solo does so soon after The Last Jedi. Maybe they are considering moving to 2 films a month. Or maybe it's just going to be that 1 film a year and it's just going to last that long. I mean, I don't know. Only time will tell. If I'm being completely honest, I am starting to feel a little anxious about all of these unknown projects. I mean, yeah, I am excited about them, but it's a strange and unknown feeling for me to not know something about Star Wars. I want some details, but we don't know if Kenobi is even happening. We don't know anything about the Johnson trilogy. We don't know anything about this series. We don't know anything about the live-action TV series we're supposed to be getting, like next year or the near future. It's an interesting feeling, I'll tell you, but I'm sure once details start to come in, I'll be more and more excited. I mean, they're new Star Wars stories, and to me, that's always going to be reason for celebration. But what do you guys think about all this? Are you excited for Benioff and Weiss's involvement? What do you think their series is going to be about? Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments, and if you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel to keep up with Star Wars news as it develops, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and consider checking out my Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.